Hi there. One of the questions I'm often asked is, how do mediators help people resolve disputes between them? And the answer is that mediators spend quite a lot of time studying different processes and skills for helping people move from being in very different positions to finding a way forward that is fair for both of them. But it occurred to me when I was thinking about this that there are probably some basic skills and strategies that most people could use to help resolve disputes before they get out of hand, probably meaning that you don't need to involve a third person at all. So here are just a few things that mediators try and use on a regular basis to try and help people move from being in two very different positions to actually finding a way forward that feels fair to everybody involved. I think the first thing I'd say is, if you're involved in a dispute, be it between you and somebody else, or whether you're helping some other people where they've got into disputes and they've come to you to see if you can help them sort it out, is to try and catch it early if you can. The longer disputes go on, the more resentment that tends to build up, the more misunderstandings get brought in, and trust between the people involved tends to get eroded away fairly quickly. So catching it early is normally quite a good thing to do. One of the things you have to bear in mind, of course, though, is if you're trying to sort things out fairly early on in a dispute, one of the difficulties can be that feelings can be running quite high, people can feel quite angry and hurt. And so bearing that in mind and treating things sensitively is really quite important. And you may just need to spend a little bit of time just allowing people to just vent and get things off their chest before you can do it. One of the things also that's really helpful is making sure that people feel heard and understood. One of the main reasons that people tend to keep going round and round the same argument is that they don't feel that other people understand why they're so upset or why they're so angry. And so listening and making sure that people do feel heard is really important. One of the things that also tends to happen when people get into dispute is, as soon as they hear the argument from the other person, they're already thinking about what that response will be. And so you stop hearing what they're saying and are just crafting your response to go back to them again. And of course, the other person's doing exactly the same thing. So overall, nobody gets to hear what the other person is saying. The other thing that's really important as well is actually acknowledging how people are feeling. So this does not necessarily mean to say that you agree with what the other person's saying, but what you're doing is you're showing them that you have heard what they said, you have heard that they're upset, and you've let them know that you've heard it. The way that mediators quite often do this is by actually summarising back what the person has said back to them. Now, that is not just repeating verbatim back everything that they've just said to you. That would just be a bit weird apart from anything else. But what it actually is picking out the key points that are being made and just checking that those are the ones that are important to them. And so that does two things, really. Firstly, it checks that you really do understand what's being said and haven't just misheard things or put your interpretation on it. But it also makes them feel that actually, finally, somebody has heard what they're saying, and that stops people from feeling they have to keep saying it and going over and over the same ground. The other thing that you can do, and this is particularly the case if you're helping perhaps a couple of other people try and sort something out, but actually also works if you're just in a dispute yourself and trying to sort it out with the other person, is to try and pick out the things where there is actually some common ground. So whilst you may disagree over all sorts of things with a friend, actually what you might find for both of you is the friendship is actually really important. And so if that is something you still both share, and you would like to get back to a point where you are friends again, albeit it might be a slightly different relationship to what it was before, then that's a common area of interest that you can both start from. And that gives a much better base from which to build out and find a way forward on the thing that you've fallen out about. And if you're trying to help somebody else, say, for example, one of the things as mediators we do quite a lot is helping parents talk about the needs of their children and how they're going to be met. There may be big differences between people as to how their children's needs are going to be met, and that's what's caused the dispute between them. But actually, when you talk to the parents, what you will find is that they both want what's best for their children. They both want stability if there are any arrangements for them, and they both want their children to feel safe and thrive. So if you've got that as a shared point of agreement to start with, it's much easier then to work together on how that's going to be achieved. And again, that's something that mediators do all the time. Perhaps the final thing to say is to focus on what needs to change rather than what has happened. Inevitably, when people are angry and upset with each other, you again go back into the past, you go back over all the things that the other person's done to upset you or make you angry. The reality is neither of you can change it. Neither of you can change what has been said or what has been done. What you can do, however, is talk about what you want to be different going forward. So if you'd like the other person to change something in their behaviour, rather than criticise what they've done before, tell them what you'd like them to do differently. And same for the other person as well. And from that, you can start to build a new way forward so that you can actually find a way of getting over this particular disagreement or helping somebody else get over that disagreement and be able to sort things out in a way that feels fair for everybody involved. I hope that's helpful.